Adelita Montero, hello.
Hello, Atlas. How are you?
Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Likewise, super pumped. And it was awesome meeting you at Anthony Flores's house. That was a bunch of fun. That field, the energy there is very strong.
Yes.
Great gathering, great energy of people, ideas that are being manifested.
Left and right.
Yeah.
This is the time.
Yeah, it is. It is. And we're going to be talking about the warrior champion mindset. I'm so pumped. This is your unique way of rebalancing the imbalances in peak performers so that they can actualize their greatest gifts into the world. And it leverages a lot of different techniques. We'll talk about mindfulness, we'll talk about meditation, NLP, hypnosis, biohacking, nutrition. We'll talk about all that good stuff. By the way, it may not appear so, but Adelita, if you read the bio, she's a 4-time Jiu Jitsu world champion. And so at any point, if I get out of line, she's going to tackle me. And actually, we'll probably undergo some demos, maybe a couple demos. Maybe she'll show us a couple things, jiu-jitsu wise, hypnosis wise, NLP wise. Maybe she'll walk us through a couple demos if we're lucky.
Sounds good.
Okay, cool. Okay, awesome. All right. Adelita, let's start things off with your understanding of the nature of reality. Who are we truly, and why does this reality exist?
I love this is like my favorite subject. Believe it or not. Reality, the nature of reality. So in NLP, we study a lot about the nature of reality. And when I teach NLP courses, we really dive into the different modalities, right? So there's like visual input, there's auditory input, there's kinesthetic input, we're being bombarded with sensory input, and our nervous system, it has to filter, it has to make sense of all this data. And it's so overwhelming that it has a mechanism of generalizing, deleting, and distorting. Because if we didn't have this filter, we'd probably go insane because it's just too much.
Yeah.
So pretty much you don't see reality as it is. You see reality as you are, basically, through these filters. So there's these filters. So for example, if you're a pregnant lady and then you go out on the street, you're gonna only see about pregnancy stuff, pregnant ladies and babies and all kinds of things related to that. That's what you see. So it's a way for that we hyper focus on things that are interesting to us, right? And so if you're interested in making money and you have this mindset of, succeeding in the world, you're going to go out there and that's all you're going to see. And it can also be detrimental if you're misusing this mechanism. All you could see is something very negative. People that are very sad and depressed, they can look around and only see reasons to be more sad and more depressed. And they almost tend to gravitate towards experiences, people, and TV programs that will actually reinforce that belief. And it becomes addicting because our brain secretes neurotransmitters and gets us hooked into certain states. So this is very interesting. So you see what you are, not reality as it is. So what do you want to see?
Oh, I love the ending to that. So yeah, what do you want to see? Yeah, exactly. And that's really, really well articulated. It's a really consciousness oriented perspective around the nature of reality. First of all, sentience plays a fundamental role in reality. So our awareness, this evolutionary culmination, the pinnacle of human awareness, is gorgeous, and it's exactly how this reality was designed to undergo this process. And then from that point, if you're not a sovereign being of your awareness, of your consciousness on a most first principled level, if you're not a sovereign being of that, oh my goodness, we are going to encounter a lot of unnecessary suffering. And we can encounter a lot more well-being, a lot more prosperity, a lot more abundance with that mindset change. And I love the example that you gave because it's so common to people, in the sense of, for people, especially like the example with car rentals. Usually what happens is if once you rent like a Toyota Prius and you're driving around the Toyota Prius on the streets for a couple days as you go on a trip somewhere, let's say, what do you start noticing? Toyota Priuses everywhere. You actually notice them everywhere now. But before you weren't noticing, but they were still there. And it's the same thing with if you're pregnant and you're walking around and you begin to notice the acuity, your sensory acuity to that specific phenomenon becomes more sensitive. And that's super interesting. So then now on a very macro level with sentience, with consciousness, we can think about it like, actually this is probably a pretty decent time to actually bring up this. We can probably bring up both of these because they're both kind of good to bring up to explain this along the way. That, and this is Adelita's
levels of mindset.
Levels of mindset. And so, like she was describing to us a moment ago, you can find yourself in a victim level of consciousness, an egoic level of consciousness. And everywhere you look, you will see people that are self-dealing to themselves, people that are complaining, people that are ignorant, people that are not creating value into the world. Or you can enter into maybe one level up, a creator mentality, where you realize that you are sovereign, you are able to create reality, you are able to bring value into the world. So why don't you walk us through this on a deeper level, because this is already, I can tell that this is already going to be fascinating because it's so oriented around mindset, it's so oriented around consciousness, around sentience, and I love that about what you're sharing with us.
Yeah, so our thoughts are really powerful. So through our thoughts and through our emotions, we create. I have a quote, and it's also part of the slogan on my website. It's, as you think and feel, so you create.
Yes.
So what does that mean, right? So your thoughts, when you think of something that has a level of energy, when you feel an emotion associated with that thought, you amplify that thought. And that becomes really powerful. And then when you detach from the outcome, you can really create the reality that you want. So you have to know that at some level intellectually at first, if you never heard of it. It takes a little while for you to assimilate. Maybe you're going to hear from different people, and then eventually it's going to click, and then it becomes part, you embody that knowledge. Becomes your wisdom, becomes your knowing.
Yes.
Okay, so just hearing this, and if you never heard before, you don't have it down yet. It's just like Jiu Jitsu. You're going to go to the mat, and then you're going to show you an arm bar, and you're going to do it a couple times, 10 times in one day. You go home, you come back the next day. You don't know. You don't know an arm bar. And this is very similar. So there are many things regarding mindset and consciousness and thoughts and the words that we use and all those different things that coming together creates our reality. So we need to be really cognizant of that, because I have a quote that says, your state dictates your fate, right? So your emotional state is constantly creating the next level of experience for you. So whether you love what's going on in your life or you hate it, you are the one who's actually creating that. So that's good news and bad news. If you love everything that's going on in your life, congratulations, you created that. Some people find that controversial because, you know, there's trauma, there's suffering, there's this and that is that. But we don't know what we don't know when we step away back far enough from the point of view of God and the Creator, and maybe the plurality of lives and existence. Everything makes sense. Everything makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
So we are creating our reality, sometimes good, sometimes bad. When we take responsibility, right, then we can really alter like those experiences from good to bad to better and to the ultimate, which is the warrior champion mindset. Most people live in victimhood. If you look at the graphic, like the victim mentality. Victim mentality is where I came from. It's part of my story. Like I come from a family in Brazil, in São Paulo, where not super high level of consciousness going on there. Spiritually, we didn't really go to any religions. My parents, they were a little bit cynical of organized religions. And I mean, I don't blame them from the point of view that they understood it was really like the opiate of the masses in a way. But you can't throw the baby with the bathwater, right? There's something good in there, and they just ignored that completely. So we didn't have anything, right? Sometimes having a organized religion, you can get something out of it. It's better than nothing, right? So I had nothing. Then if you look at emotionally, we didn't really know how to deal with negative emotions. We had a lot of conflict in like blaming and yelling and screaming. We didn't really know how to deal with conflict in a healthy way. And intellectually, my parents, none of them graduated college. For example, my dad, he didn't even make to middle school. And finally, like physically and athletically and all that, we didn't really belong to any gyms or trained as a family, played any sports or exercise together, anything like that. Never. In fact, both of my parents smoked 1 pack of cigarettes a day, right? So it's the very opposite. So from where I came from, we came from victim mindset, right? We are not taking care of our health. We have no level of spirituality. We don't know how to deal with our emotions. It's just like a disaster. It's a disaster. But looking at it, you know,
your greatest trauma created your greatest treasure.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, I am so grateful for my parents for everything that they've done for me, and because they were doing the very best they could with what they had. And I feel like I turned out all right, you know, like...
You turned out really badass. Yeah.
So I learned a lot. You know, they were teaching me like what I didn't want. Like,
but you sometimes use the warrior champion mindset, even though you may not have had that terminology while you were working your way out of the victim level consciousness to creator consciousness and to the warrior champion mindset, because this is, in a sense, a perfect story of how you overcame such intense traumatic aspects to an upbringing where there was such a lack of knowledge of this.
Yes, my parents got divorced when I was 8, and there was a lot of turmoil, and I felt like there was a lot of lack and this and that, and eventually you have to take ownership. You can't live your whole life in victim mindset just because you came from victim mindset. It's up to us to grow out of those things and realize those things, right? So it was a journey because I felt like something was lacking, something was missing, and I felt like angry and lonely and kind of disoriented as a kid. So there was like this huge hole in my heart, and I didn't really know what was missing. So I just kept searching and doing things and accomplishing things. And I moved to the United States, relocated to another continent, maybe unconsciously trying to find something to, heal this wound inside of me, this lack. I felt like something was not right the way I was raised or grew up, and I wanted to find what that was. So I went on this quest, right? It's the hero's journey.
Yes.
I relocated to another hemisphere, right? And I graduated from an international business course at 1% of my class, and I relocated to a foreign country, and I got married. I had 2 kids to a successful executive in Orange County. I was living the desperate housewives or Orange County's lifestyle. I had the SUV, a couple of kids, I had the smartphone, and the credit cards and all that. But it didn't fulfill, right? So how many of us sometimes try to use relationships and accomplishments and titles, whatever, just to try and fill this void, trying to find your worthiness or validation in the world or something. So it was this quest, it was a lot of energy, pouring until I found Jiu Jitsu.
Wow.
Right? Jiu Jitsu was like, oh my God, I start training. I was like, maybe this is it, Within 3 months, I competed in my first Jiu Jitsu tournament.
Boom.
And I lost my first match. It was at Poly State in Long Beach, and I was living in Temecula. Nobody from my school was competing in it. I just signed up and competed, drove up, and I'm gonna fight Jiu-Jitsu, right? I was 28 years old or something. It's not like I've done this my whole life. I didn't even learn Jiu-Jitsu in Brazil. I learned it here in the US, in Temecula.
Wow.
So with Tom Cronin at Carlson Gracie team, and those guys are amazing. So in 3 months, I was able to go, and I lost my first match, so I had to come back and win again and again and again. But I ended up winning that tournament, my first tournament. I won first place. It was called Grappling X in Long Beach. But what that taught me is that, that didn't fulfill. It was just another way I was trying to feel that validations. Like, look at me, I can win. And then I really wanted to win a world title, right? And it's just none of these things filled that hole. So it was not only until I realized that my marriage was crumbling, that I had to really face that relationship was dead. It was a dead end, right? I had to really face and do something about it. I had to get out of that relationship that was not allowing me to grow, to expand. I felt like it was this disconnect there, right? And a lot of the elements that you look for in a relationship, I felt like it was not there. So when I saw I had to face the pain of the crumbling of, the dream, the story that you create, the life that you create, that's when really I started to develop myself, to work on myself, to learn about mindset. That's when I did a 1-week program in Northern California with the Hoffman process.
Cool.
heavily based on NLP and gratitude practices and cathartic exercises, and it's immersive, 1 week of you working on yourself. I think it requires that for you to turn in your cell phone and just work on yourself, right?
Yeah.
So that was the very beginning of my journey on working on myself, and did meditation retreats and things like that. So it's been like since 2012, it's been like a journey since I joined Jiu Jitsu of learning about mindset, about emotions, the lack and the validation, and about codependency, right? How I didn't know that about myself, that I was over giving, right? In the give program, and like not really getting much back. And then I just had to really understand about narcissism and codependency. And it's a lot to learn, you know, like relationship dynamics, when you project something on somebody's projecting something on you. And there's just so much that we don't know what we don't know, right? So it's been an interesting journey. So once I start working on myself, that I developed myself, that overcame a lot of these patterns from my childhood, that's when I was first time able to win a world tournament, right? That was the first time that it felt like there was a block. There's something that would not allow, it's like a self-sabotage that would not allow me to feel worthy enough or good enough to step on that mat and then, you know what, I'm just, you know, gonna do this. And there's also a detachment that you create. Now it's not about anger and in your opponent and stuff. It's like they are there for you as an instrument, a reflection of you. Like they are your mirror, right? Yeah. So you respect them in a different way. The same with relationships and all that, right? So that opponent was there showing me my fears, my inadequacies, and then detaching from the outcomes. Like, okay, I'm gonna do my best, right? I'm gonna go all in, but then the outcome, it's like it's not really important. So that's when you really overcome a lot. So that's when you go from a victim mindset to a creator mindset, which is level 2 there on this graphic, right? From a victim to a creator. A creator is what? It's somebody who knows these things, embody this lesson of like, you know what? We can create our reality. You know, I'm going to meditate. I'm going to focus my thoughts. I'm going to journal. I'm going to do affirmations. I'm going to, focus on my goals, right? Set goals and stay on track. So that's the creator. The creator gets things done. It's about having, like what you can have, what you can bring about in the world. And that's great. But what happens is eventually after a while, you can have all you want, and that's not satisfying, right? You can have the titles, you can have the relationship, you can have the money, you can have the car, and you can have, you know, millions and billions of dollars. These people are miserable out of their lives, right? Disconnected from source, disconnected from humanity and what really matters, right? So that's eventually you want to overcome and move up to what I call the warrior mindset, right? We graduate from creator mindset into a warrior mindset. And then now, what's a warrior mindset? A warrior champion mindset would be somebody that now, instead of manifesting things and cars and girls and good-looking guys, relationships, the trophy wife and the house and the crib and the, you know, all these things, they're great. Don't get me wrong, but if you go beyond that, you can have all that, but that's not your main intention. So now, if you're in warrior champion mindset, what you're trying to manifest are virtues. Okay, you're not things, but virtues. So imagine.
I love that.
I wanna, like, if I could have anything in the world, like if I was in front of God and God, because it's pretty much the universe, whatever you want to call it, and saying, what do you want? Is an eternal, what do you want? I love you, what do you want? So I would say, I want perfect health. I want perfect health. I want truth. I want truth for me and for the world. I want the truth to come out. I want freedom. So these are more intangibles, right? What do you mean freedom? I want people to be free. I believe people are supposed to be happy, healthy, and free, and we're not having that right now. So instead of wanting the house, the crib, and this and that, I want those things, but those things, they don't exclude the other ones. But that's not my main focus, right? Yeah. It's the same thing when you go after a relationship, right? Let's say you're single and you're looking around on the apps, and then you're swiping left and right, right? And then what you see, it's like sometimes it's like people that are, you know, projecting that, oh, I have this car, I have this house, and the girls are projecting like, oh, you know, I'm beautiful, and I whatever, like, you know, I'm hot. So I don't think there's nothing wrong with that per se, but if that's all there is, that's just not enough for me. I think and for anybody really, because eventually down the line, that is fun for 6 months. 6 months is the honeymoon phase. After that, you're disconnected, right? There's a disconnection, and that initial excitement, that dopamine, whatever, oxytocin, all that runs out. So it's like a chemical thing. Dr. David Hawkins talked about that. He wrote the Power versus Force, which is really tremendous body of work. He has many other books, but Dr. Hawkins says that, you know, they're not in a relationship. It's like a romanticized like fantasy, right? It's not a real, you know, loving. It's like you're not in love with somebody. You in love with an idea. It's like a fairy tale of a romanticized construct of your ego mind, right? So then it eventually that's gonna crash. It's gonna crumble down, right? So starting a relationship is starting your life and the foundations, building a foundation that is based on, you know, values, like who you really are. Beautiful. And what you really want.
I love it.
So you have to do some work and digging in, right? Because it's the contrast that takes place. Instead of you just going through life and then just like getting hurt and not knowing what you want and just repeating that same pattern, you could stop at one point, just like I had to stop at one point. Some life crisis come about, right? But you could do that without a life crisis. You could just go introspect and say and figure out what you really want, because we've been programmed. We don't know who we are. We don't know anything about the human condition. We don't know about the essence, the ego. We don't know about after death. And, you know, we've been programmed and fed these ideas. And we don't really have an understanding of how to relate to others, because everybody is just kind of playing a role. Like everybody's wearing a mask. So it's really difficult, right? So for people to break out of that, I think it requires radical humility and courage. So these are the virtues of the warrior, okay? So going back to the warrior champion, it's like to be a warrior, think about that. The archetype of a warrior, he's gonna die for what he believes. It's about values, right? If freedom is my value, okay, there's a point that is not worth living, okay, if your freedoms are stripped out of you. There's a point that you have to stand up like a warrior and say enough is enough, right? And fight for what you believe, for your values, for your family, for your relationship, for your spirituality, for whatever values that you hold. So we need to raise our consciousness. You know, maybe we could bring Dr. Hawkins now. Dr. David Hawkins, he was a psychiatrist. He was greatly renowned, more than 50 years in practice, and super famous all over the US. He had clinics, very prolific, wrote so many books, Power versus Force, Letting Go, Truth versus Falsehood. And, you know, he created the levels of consciousness, the map of, the different levels of emotion. So what he used is muscle testing, right? In muscle testing, you can calibrate, you can ask yes or no questions to your body, just like with nutrition. A lot of chiropractors and body workers know this and access this, like through our energy of our meridians and all that. We can ask questions, is this magnesium good for me, right? Is this food good for me? I used to order like a meal prep that wasn't good for me, and then I muscle tested it, and it came out like, no, there's something wrong with this. I don't know exactly what it is, and then I quit. So there are things that your body knows that you can access, like a higher level of intelligence through muscle testing. So muscle testing is widely used, in chiropractor, nutrition, functional medicine, and such. So the level of consciousness he calibrated from the very bottom, like starting at 0 all the way to 1,000, as you can see in the graph there. And according to Dr. David Hawkins, like 80 to 85% of all people are resonating, are vibrating. So these are different vibrational, emotional levels, right? If we're gonna measure the vibrational output of your emotions at any given time, like the aggregate, some people are vibrating at shame or guilt or desire, anger, pride, or fear, in those levels, right? Overall. So anything from pride and below is like 200 and below. Those are negative emotions, right? Mm-hmm. So 80 to 85% are living in that reality of negative emotions, of victimhood, the victim mindset, of blaming, of fear, of the perpetuation of like victimhood and being offended, right? So this is all egoic constructs and patterns, right, that you have to grow out of. And it's like a ladder. You climbing up this Jacob's ladder.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you climbing up. So shame is in the very bottom. Humiliation, when you shame somebody, when humiliating in front of people, don't ever do that to your kid. That's the worst thing you could possibly do.
Yeah.
Humiliation.
Yeah.
Is very low. Like, that's the people like suicidal and all that, right? That's like cyberbullying and things like that. It goes right there, right?
Yeah.
So then moving up, there's guilt. There's, eventually there's fear, pride, anger, and all those things. So there's more energy, calibrates higher a little bit every time you go up. Actually, pride has more energy. Anger has more energy than apathy and despair on the very bottom. Right? You can kind of see that. But we don't want to be stuck in any of those levels, because when we are resonating with pride or with anger or with fear, you attract that to your life. You're resonating that, you're putting that out to the universe, that's what you get back.
Yeah.
Right? That's the reality. We create our reality, but we're creating now in a dysfunctional way, right? And it's kind of like a loop. That's why you need help. Like, you can't really break out of that loop by yourself, right? If I got coaches, I got classes, I read books, and it's forever. I'm not above anything or anybody, and I continue to learn, right? So, and it's a lot about spirituality and not religion, right? Dr. Hawkins talked a lot about spirituality versus religion, because religion is dogmatic, is man-made, and is created. Spirituality is something that is just your connection with the divine. It's the divine spark that lives inside of you, and that has no religion. It's not Christian. It's all the above, and it's none of it. It's the
beautiful. Yeah.
It encompasses everything, right? It's your livelihood, it's your breath.
Yeah.
Right? So
That's it.
Eventually we have to surrender all these patterns and all the old stories and the emotional negativity. So imagine, like, if you're out on the street, 8 out of 10 people are living at 200 and below, at the lower levels of emotional, like, regulation, emotional intelligence. So if you are vibrating a higher, like in reason or love, which is more rare, what happens is those people, they can't really understand what you're saying in many cases.
Yep.
It's like you're speaking English and they're speaking Chinese or something.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting to see that, don't waste too much time, right?
Yeah.
Don't waste time there trying to translate your soul.
Yeah.
Right?
Amen.
To these people.
Yeah.
So our job is to continue to grow, and eventually we want to be a love and above, right? And resonating with everything to do with unconditional love. That's the surrendering, right? The warrior surrenders its life to the cause of the will of the creator, to the values. It's not anymore, the warrior champion is not anymore about what he wants, but is what is right to do. What is he called to do? Right? It's non-linear. We live in a linear world. Everything is causation and has to make sense. So this is straight up from the David Hawkins. It's crazy looking from the outside.
It's genius level.
Right?
Yeah.
So you're accessing, like, your intuition, and that now you are receiving instructions and you're following with the different outlook in life, and purpose is completely different, right? And the warrior champion is surrendering the thoughts, the emotions, the life, constantly, in the moment to moment.
Yes.
Right? To divinity itself.
Wow. Okay, so holy cow. First of all, I'm really happy that I just sat there in silence listening to you, because that was a TED Talk in itself. That riff was a straight up beautiful TED Talk, artistic expression of consciousness. It was gorgeous. And I just sat there and took it all in and watched it. I hope other people did too. I also, like a good student, I took some notes. And so I will be sharing those notes as well here in a moment. First of all, I just want to say, insanely makes tons of sense. I love it when all of the pieces click in the trajectory of the person. And so it totally clicks. Your story about your parents and your upbringing in Sao Paulo, your story about the victim levels of consciousness in that scenario, your story about coming here to Orange County and having all of it made for you and still feeling a void. It's always so interesting how when we don't feel self-realization as the one infinite creator, what we do is we try and fill that void with external anything. And it's super interesting how you found that in your process of, yes, it serves a purpose for us all to undergo some sort of, in this case, what was at the time, it served the purpose you had of a marriage. You have 2 children. And so you bring souls into the world. And it's incredible. And it's fun. And it serves a purpose. And it's awesome. But then we also realize that, well, maybe the marriage that I'm in now no longer serves my highest potential, my highest calling. And maybe given all of the strategies that you went through in how couples undergo these styles of dynamics and undergoing, you got triggered to go into NLP, you got triggered to go into Jiu Jitsu. But, you know, when the knocks came, knock, knock, Adelita, knock, knock, Adelita, you answered and you said, I'm in. And when you say, I'm in because I want to change something, because it feels weird being in this victim consciousness, it feels weird being in something that feels like it shouldn't be there, in the sense of I feel something that's deeper, something that's more profound, something that's maybe a state of possible, potential, perpetual bliss and peace that I should be, rather than something that is of a state of victim consciousness. And so you answer these knocks, you get exposed to more and more of these leaders and fields, and attaining mastery in them, synthesizing the core concepts into your own warrior champion mindset teaching that in many ways mirrors what I would argue as the greatest levels of genius in the category of human development. Because whether you look at David Hawkins here and his levels of consciousness, or whether you look at the Claire Graves, Don Beck, Chris Cowan spiral dynamics levels of consciousness, Ken Wilber, Jean Piaget, Lawrence Kohlberg, Sri Aurobindo, the Mother Mira Alfasa, Eric Erickson, there's a ridiculous amount of people that have now studied these specific levels of consciousness. And they're very interestingly super duper similar in many ways, which is, generally speaking, they're evolving from an egoic level of consciousness to what the spiritual mystic traditions call a non-dual level of consciousness. And so what is fascinating is that there's all of these levels in between them. And in this case with David Hawkins does a really good job at, he uses a lot of adjectives, he uses a lot of descriptors, he uses a lot of ways of perceiving oneself that if someone attaches the word, anger or fear to me, I think that's a really powerful, way to, or if I even self-reflect myself, and that's even better. And if I realize myself that, that was maybe a little bit more of I really felt the tendency of fear bubbled up in me. And so there's like the possibility of it getting someone saying it to you, or you realizing it yourself about yourself. And I think these descriptors are really helpful because it kind of gives us some sort of a transcendent noble aim. It gives us a direction that, like, I want to be courageous. I want to be loving, unconditional loving. I want to have an imperturbable peace and causeless joy. I want to feel what enlightenment is. I want to feel a union with God, a union with the one infinite creator. I want to feel what the planetary mystic traditions, like you indicated, spirituality being transcendent of the religious dogmas and fundamentalism. I want to feel what that is. And so, one of the great paradoxes and enigmas of our creation is, like Rumi says, you go around from room to room looking for the diamond necklace that is already around your neck. So you are already it, but you have to recognize that you're it. And in this case, if you're down in, fear and guilt and shame and egoic levels of consciousness, to just breeze that off and say that, I'm already it. Great. So there's still a process that unfolds, and you can undergo some direct path teaching to get yourself to realize a more enlightened, peaceful, blissful, joyful state of being. But even with the direct path, there are typically levels of rebaselining that occur as well along the way. But that's generally speaking what this is. It's a process of rebaselining yourself over time to higher levels of consciousness, as all of the great human development synthesis have indicated. You fit right in at that level of genius, of identifying that we must go beyond victim level consciousness to creator level consciousness, and then to the warrior champion mindset. I love it. It's beautiful. And I'll share these notes. because I think these notes were really profoundly important for me. So first is we have, I love this one, state dictates fate. Profound, so simple. And then take responsibility. Take responsibility of your state, which will dictate your fate. And then at that very peak, instead of pursuing conspicuous consumption of materialism, manifest virtues. If you manifest things like you want to be in service to bringing people value around the planet, be in service to unconditional love, be in service to bringing a transcendent, noble North Star into our world, what will happen is you will manifest the material goods in a way that, on the journey, in a way that is actually long lasting. And the same thing's true with partnerships, like you indicated as well, that if you're manifesting virtues, that's going to be what ends up being more longer lasting. It's like when you undergo the divine union with another partner, and if you're both at that level of warrior champion mindset of you're manifesting virtues, it's unbelievable the ascension that happens between two people.
Yes, and Jesus said it best, right? He said, first seek the kingdom of God, and all things, other things will be added on to you. And that's so true.
Yeah, exactly.
The relationship, the amazing, divine union relationship that we can only like dream about, it actually does manifest. The money, the prosperity, the health, the joy, the creativity, being at the right place at the right time, those things are very real. But you can't experience those if you don't even know that that's possible. And then once you know that's possible, what do I need to do to align my vibration, my emotion, and my thoughts so I can actually align with that energy? So if you want unconditional love, you have to be unconditional loving. If you wanna be in a relationship, first you need to have a relationship with yourself and with God, and then with yourself, before you get in relationship and love with anybody.
Amen.
So one step at a time.
Yeah. This is, again, a very perennial spiritual mystic truth, is that the kingdom of God is within you. Like Leo Tolstoy said, like in John 10:30, you have I and my Father are one. In the Sufi metaphysics, you have Wadat al-Wujud, which means the unity of all unveiling and finding of all of sentience, which is crazy and beautiful. You have the non-dual spiritual traditions around the planet that make it very clear that the Atman and the Brahman are one. The Advaita Vedanta tradition. And the more that we go from that self-realization and then to everything else is when we really succeed at life. Because once you really know that that diamond necklace is truly around your neck, once you really know that, everything you do from there, relationships, self-actualization in terms of business success, in terms of monetary success, in terms of material success, in terms of solving the sustainable development goals, in terms of everything that you touch with your friendships, your colleagues, everything is gold. But it has to come from a place of self-realization first. And that means that you have to work your way into rebaselining yourself to these elevated levels of consciousness. Okay, and then the last note that was very profound from what you were teaching was that all problem is disconnection from source. I love that one. All problem is disconnection from source. And then, as David Hawkins used, like you indicated, muscle tests to indicate where people are at. And then, as we talk about a lot on the program, is we can sort of use these biometrics in order to indicate where people are at on their journeys. And I thought it was really interesting because a lot of the things that you were talking about in the last segments, we're very, very profoundly aligned. Well, first thing is that I just like to say that it was really cool how you used the analogy of don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, because that's such a core analogy of my life. This is in chapter 7. It's called the sorting algorithm, that you want to retain the beautiful baby of spirituality as you drain the dirty bathwater of religious fundamentalism and dogma.
Wow.
And then the same thing with science on the other side, is that you want to keep the beauty of the scientific method, but then you want to drain a lot of the perverse incentives that exist in the sciences as well, and then marry the two babies into one, science and spirituality. So there's that one. And then there's this other one, which we were just talking about a moment ago, which is the idea of some sort of a biometrics of awakening. So if we can use David Hawkins, if we can use the other sort of leaders in the space of quantifying biometrically via EEG, fMRI, HRV, microbiome, all of the different quantified self movements and biohacking, if I can say that you rank on this specific spot on the Human Development Index, let's say, and then we can do interventions around meditation, mindfulness, hypnosis, entheogens, all different types of nutrition, sleep, exactly, awareness, consciousness, being a sovereign being in that sense, self-realization, that we can re-baseline people up towards more enlightened states of consciousness.
Absolutely.
And this becomes really important, because if we do this for, as you see there's one that's a wealth hierarchy, and then there's the other that's an enlightenment hierarchy. We always put people into a wealth hierarchy, and we never put people into an enlightenment hierarchy. And it's interesting, because what if you take the people at the top of the wealth hierarchy, like the 2,200 billionaires around the planet, or the 225,000 ultra high net worth people around the planet, or the UN General Assembly, or the Fortune 500 CEOs, or the USA Congress, and what if we begin quantifying them on the Human Development Index? What if our most powerful people in positions of leadership around the country are in egoic levels of consciousness?
We'll call it sub 200, right? They're below 200 and below. You can see just by discernment of the words and the acts that they actually do, not what they say they're going to do.
And one more time, sub 200 is pride and below, is that right?
Yes. So pride and below, those are negative levels of negative emotions. That's where most
sub
people...
200. Is
Yes.
sub 200.
So
okay.
courage
And it goes from
above
0 to 1,000 on the left.
Enlightenment, it's like 1,000.
Got it.
You pretty much, when you reach that, you can't hold that vibration in the planet. Like, people just go away. There's nothing for them to do.
I have totally started feeling vibes like that, and it has been the most profound experiences of my life so far. Moment to moment is just like insane. It's incredible. And I can help people like you can, and like so many of our guests that come on the program, is we try and help provide viewers with the materials that are needed in order to make these upgrades in consciousness. That's the whole point of the fucking show. Welcome to simulation. Yeah. So I love this. I love this. It's such a great way to visualize, but we have to be honest. That's another thing. We have to be honest with ourselves, with where we're at. And we have to also be Willingness is a big one. Willingness. Right in there. Courage. It takes so much courage, right? When I was feeling like I was trapped in a marriage, into that kind of societal construct,
is it's really difficult for you to say, you know what, I'm gonna blow this thing up and I'm gonna go after like what my heart is saying. That's what I said. I'm following my heart. So I was scoffed at, laughed at. I was diagnosed as with narcissistic personality disorder. So I start feeling anxiety and panic because I start to buy into that. It's like, well, maybe they are right, because this is like my ex together with our therapist, and they're like together like saying that, you know, I am I have a narcissistic personality disorder, and buying a narcissistic disorder book and giving it to my 15-year-old son, and it's like, here's how you deal with your mom. And then I start like buying into that. So it's very dangerous when you go see somebody and then you take what they say just because they're the expert on the other side at face value. So I started to believe that maybe I was that, and I starting to have panic attacks I never had before. So one day I don't really tell my mom everything that goes on in my life, because there's nothing she can do. She's another part of the world. She doesn't speak English. She, you know, it's just, there's not much that she can do, and she's kind of frail, like emotionally, let's say. So I kind of spare her and I filter a lot of stuff. So but eventually I was sharing with her what was happening and what they said. And she said, Adelita, you forgot who you are. Just the fact that you're considering whether or not you are a narcissist, that means you're not a narcissist. Number one. Second is, narcissistic personality disorder people, they have no remorse, they have no empathy. All they do is they manipulate. They're all about themselves. And we've known you growing up, what you do is like, you're always helping people. Like, you can't help yourself, but like reach out, and without people asking for your help, you're already helping. You were there, involved in, and then she kind of made something click inside my head. It was like, and snapped me out of this trance, right? And I was being hypnotized. So eventually when I realized that and I saw what was going on, I said, you know what? This is my truth. This is when I'm out of this is done. You know, I came back from the Hoffman process. It was crystal clear what I had to do. I actually had a vision that came to me. It was like kind of like because we do a lot of gratitude and a little bit some spiritual work too. So in my dream, the weekend of the end of that event, I saw like my ex, and there was like a sword that was pushed into his belly just a little bit. And from what I understood, what I felt in that moment of that image is that I was the warrior, the samurai that had to go and push it in all the way, because he was already in pain, he was already suffering. So that's what I had to do, and that's what I did. So I just pushed the sword all the way in, like with that samurai like empathy and respect for your opponent's death, right? In a sacred way, right? Nor in a anger, revengeful way, but it's like put you out of your misery, right? So that's exactly what I did and I had it very, very clear. Like, as soon as you go back, do not hesitate. Don't wait. As soon as you come back from this retreat, let him know. Tell him that's done and that it's over and it's this agony. Just put him out of the misery, right? And then I arrived on a Sunday. It was Father's Day. I felt like, Spirit, really? Like, I don't think that's... maybe I'll wait until... Monday morning. So Monday morning came, and then I told him. So I said, that's it. I do, maybe it's gonna take a little process of time, but it's like I'm just done. We're done. That's it. I'm done, right? So we were already living like roommates for like almost like a year before that already. So it's like somebody had to do something. Who's gonna like push the sword in, right? Who's gonna have the courage to do that leap? So it's like that courage, the leap of faith to go against the the therapist guru, and going against him and whatever he was saying, and them ganging up, and doing the smear campaign, putting my kids against me and all that stuff that narcissists actually do, right? And I was, I felt like spirit carry me through. I didn't have that in me. It was something like transcendent inside of me, some spiritual superior force that carried me through that. And I had to jump and make a leap. And you know what? It's like I didn't need spousal support. I just wanted to be out there. He wasn't working actually. So if I divorced him, turned out I would have to pay him. So I had now to figure out how to support myself, right? With no family around, housewife, this and that. So there's all these financial things. There's all these things that sometimes keep people trapped. Yep. I had to blow through all that, and I had to jump and make the leap. Yes. And no child support, no family around, none of that stuff, right? So I jumped, and then once I jumped, a net was formed, and I was caught.
Yes.
Right, so it does take courage. So many times for me to start my business, for me to invest on, my business and, let go of some other patterns and fear of investment and how much money is spent on this and that. I had to make another leap and, and invest on myself. Yes. And I think I've spent now anywhere from $60,000 to $100,000 in personal development, in coaching, in growing and learning and continue, and it's just endless, right? My next dream is to go do 40 years of Zen. It's a $15,000 program in which we know David Asprey from Bulletproof Labs. He has a thing called 40 years of Zen, which Anthony did couple times. He's like the world champion of 40 years of Zen. Wow. In which you get your brain scanned and training the patterns and things that are not linking up right for performance, for neurotransmitters. Everything gets mapped, and then you meditate in these different pods, and they have all kinds of ways to track just to bring your consciousness and your mind and your brain power, cognition, and all that, including spirituality, to the next level, to the next. It's all measurable, right? So this is 40 years of Zen.
Pinnacle of neuro and biofeedback, the pinnacle of it.
Yes, so that's coming up. That's something that, oh my God, it takes a week. It takes $15,000. But if you don't make those leaps, you stay stuck. You can't keep doing the same thing and expect different results. So if you really want to be 1%, if you really want to manifest prosperity, abundance, you have to match that vibration, right? Yes. And you have to take the leap, and you have to do the work. Yes. And you have to take the time, and you're going to say, I'm going to do whatever it takes. And then once you put that energy out there, the universe catches you. The universe continues to catch you, and it continues to do so.
Man, that story where you talk about the vision coming of needing to, with the level of the warrior champion intelligence and emotional quotient, put the sword that's already there through and put the relationship out of its suffering and enable a fresh start for both of you. Man, that's a really good way to tell that story. The analogy of the sword's already there, in spot of suffering, and just to fully...
Somebody has to do it.
Somebody has to do it, put out of the suffering, go fresh, the birth of this new year. It's just like the birth of the next chapter of your lives. And so I'm glad that you have that strong analogy for it. It's really resonant, and like you said, it's to have the faith that in doing so I am going to, on a daily basis, continue pursuing abundance, continue pursuing prosperity, manifesting that, and the universe forms the net as you keep going. It forms the pathways. It's constantly rearranging itself according to your beliefs, as you have that great quote that we shared across our stories recently as well. That's the process, and it requires multiple leaps of faith over and over again, more and more, investing into the process of the fullest self-realization, the fullest self-actualization. And I really like the 40 years of Zen's fascinating. It sounds like a really strong bioneurofeedback, like what we were describing in terms of the biometric analysis of like people in the greatest positions of power on the planet. We should funnel them into places like 40 years of Zen. That would be great to quantify their states of existence and how to up level to states of more bliss, more peace, more non-duality, to where they can potentially impact the thousands of people that are potentially employed at their companies, and potentially millions of people that they touch with their products and services across the planet. That's a great top-down way. We talk about that a lot in Chapter 6 of High Level Perception, and it seems to be one of the core methods for our future in order to be able to butterfly effect the awakening most efficiently, is through that method, at the same time as we do the bottom-up, through the grassroots, through people on their own journeys that are not in those massive positions of power. I'm really happy that you went through the process of sharing with us a very detailed representation of how you visually see people evolving. That's a key. And if we don't do that, if you're a viewer or listener and you haven't undergone a process of visualizing human development, we highly recommend, if you're only listening across our audio platforms, is to look up David Hawkins' Levels of Consciousness, or you can look up Claire Graves' Spiral Dynamics. There's a lot of different world leaders in the human development spectrum here that you can visualize, check out, that helps a lot with the visual representations. Or come and check out our actual video conversation on YouTube, where we actually have the graphics embedded themselves. These are ridiculously powerful and helpful. And they give us a framework, to know where we are, where we want to go. And then it's up to us.
Yeah, I felt so lost growing up. I felt like there was something else that was better. It's almost like a longing, right? Where does that come from, right? Like a knowing that this can't be right, this reality, the way I'm living, the way I'm experiencing, where I'm coming from. There's something like more amazing that I'm missing, right? Where does that come from? So I think really important is to learn about yourself. Self-knowledge, right? Aristotle, I think, said, no, it's like the temple of the Delphi. I think it says like...
Yeah, the temple of Apollo at Delphi at the very top says, know thyself. It's the most famous Delphic maxim. 2 words, know thyself.
Know thyself.
Yeah.
And once you know thyself, you get to know the gods and the universe.
That's right.
Right? So what does that mean? Like, first you have to understand that, be interested in that, right? That's gotta be your intention. So in the intentional universe. So if that's your intention that you're putting out there, you want to know yourself, then that's the very beginning, the very first steps, right? There's so many personality I recommend the Enneagram test.
That's a good one. And so is the Big Five personality traits is another really good one. It's currently called the world's best psychometric analysis, which is very interesting. But Enneagram's also really good.
Really good.
Yeah.
Because once you understand your psychological mapping, let's say the map of your psyche and your tendencies and all that, then you have something to work from, knowing your tendencies, right? Before you fall into a hole, you kind of see the hole coming. It's like, oh, 100 miles to the hole, right? 200 miles, there's like some warning signs because you've done some work and you know that is going to recur, right? Those tests are going to happen again. If you don't master them, they repeat. So it's really important we know our patterns, right? So you can find out some personality tests like that. And there's free tests online that you can do. And also understanding the nature of, I call in my book, I'm writing a book called The Guide for the Warrior Champion Mindset Guide for Success and Freedom. I write about the parts, the human parts, right? We have several parts, so we don't really know much about our own selves. So first of all, we have, spiritual, intellectual, emotional, and physical. A lot of people get the physical and the intellectual. Almost kind of like stuck there. Now, my work with my clients is emotional, because I think that's really what was big for me. That's what really unlocks like the mindset, is through your emotions, right? If you have no access to your emotions, you're stuck. So many people, because of abandonment issues, childhood issues, programming, painful things that we can't even remember where they are. That's where hypnosis comes in and NLP comes in. You don't remember what event has wounded you and scarred you for life, but you just kind of have a limp, emotional, right? And it's painful, so we create a shell around our heart.
Yep.
So we try to protect ourselves, and then we can't, in an effort to not feel pain, we withdraw emotionally from ourselves and from the world. So that's very sad state of events, because most people are wounded. They're either cynical or fearful. They can't commit full on to a relationship. They're jaded one way or another, right? So transcending all that, getting in touch to them. There's no way around. You have to go through the pain to get to the other side. It's through the pain, it's through the suffering, it's through the dark that you're gonna find the light. You have to have that courage, right? It's the leap, it's that courage, it's that willingness, right? It's the acceptance, right? So it's an intentional effort of like showing up to the mat, showing up to the fight, and putting on the gloves and putting on your belt, and you show up and you know you're gonna be tapped out, but then you go back and then you go back again. That's the warrior mindset, right? You show up and then you go through that pain, through the pain of lifting weights, of showing up to the gym, of getting up early, whatever you have to take, whatever you have to do is whatever it takes. That's the champion mindset. That's the mindset I want people to understand. You're going to do whatever it takes to get there. What else are you going to do? You're going to live in suffering. You're going to live in scarcity. You're going to live in victim mindset. No, you're going to rise up, and sometimes through physical, right? Through physical exercise and gym and getting in shape. That's how you start to create a framework for you to pivot from, to go through the emotional. Maybe it's too big of a leap, right? So you go through the physical. We need to develop our emotional, our intellect, always learning and studying things that actually adding to your consciousness, not just trivia and like you have to filter what you consume intellectually, because it's it's your gate to your consciousness. So we have to filter, right?
Yep.
And then sourcing out good nutrition for your intellect, and that's how you also grow and access your spirituality, right?
Yep.
So you have to access all these different levels. So all these are there are different parts.
Was it
right?
physical, emotional, intellectual, spiritual?
I have an acronym. Can we draw?
Of course, let's draw. Do you want me to, or do you want to?
You can. So
Of course,
draw a
some-
pie, like a circle. It's gonna be a pie that has three
Concentric
sides.
circles?
so, like a pie that has
Yeah.
3 pieces.
Oh, well, 3 pieces. Okay, to the pie. Okay.
Yeah. It's like a pizza with 3 pieces. Equal. Like a peace sign. But it's not necessary. It can be, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and then a bigger circle all around.
All around
on
it?
the outer, that's the spiritual,
Okay, beautiful.
right?
Beautiful,
It touches
beautiful.
everything, all the aspects.
I'm going to use a different color for it.
I learned and derived some of this. This is like my own representation of it and my acronym and all that. But I derived this from Bob Hoffman, from the Hoffman process work, in which we really learn and work with our parts. And then there's a parts integration exercise, which I love, which was from NLP. That's how I fell in love with NLP,
Yes.
neuro-linguistic programming. Is when you
Yes.
integrate all these parts that they work together.
yes,
So
yes.
much of our work is to integrate the spirit with the material,
Yes.
right? The
Correct,
physical,
Of course.
integrate the psychological and spiritual work, and just integrate.
Yes.
So the acronym is PIES. P is for physical.
Inside the orange, right?
So
Or where do you
P-
like to write it?
Yeah, P would be one of the
Slices.
slices.
And okay, and so P.
P
Okay, cool. P and
For
then
physical.
Can I write physical as well?
Sure.
A little small. Okay. Physical.
And then I is intellectual or
Okay.
intellect. I call it intellectual. Our intellectual part. Or intellect. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then E is emotional. And on the outer side, the big circle is spiritual.
And where do you usually write that? Like here at the top somewhere?
Could be, yeah, anywhere you want. I have a video that I go through in detail with each of these on my YouTube channel as well. It's all about the PIES. So the acronym is PIES. P-I-E-S.
And you can find Adelita's YouTube channel link in the bio below as well. She has videos on these topics. So PIES. P, physical. I, intellectual. E, emotional. Pi, but then the S is the spiritual, the encompassing of it all. It's really beautiful. I love it. We've had many of these kind of like visual representations of maximizing potential and becoming more harmonic and imbalanced in this type of stuff. And I like yours a lot. It's very simple. It's very important. I also like how it's a good synthesis with many of the other ones. Like we had Michael Holt on the program and Josh Holland on the program, who we were hanging out with at Anthony's. And theirs both start with awareness. Theirs both start with consciousness as like the most primal thing. And that helps everything else downstream with your nutrition, exercise, sleep, goals, information, like you indicated as well. Super important, that gatekeeper of what you intake. You want to unsubscribe from things that don't serve you anymore. And
people and places.
People and places and information, yeah, all of that. And yeah, I like this a lot. So then this is going to be kind of the core. This is like the core thesis of your upcoming book.
Yeah, it's the beginning. It's like the initial introduction, because you have to know thyself. You have to know your parts and to be able to start developing each one of them. And it's a constant work that you always working on in your physical. It's your nutrition, it's your exercise, it's your hydration. Dr. David Hawkins said that a lot of his patients that were they were diagnosed with heavy like schizophrenia, or like really that's what he dealt with on a day-to-day, like serious pathological psychosis and things like that. So he said that just by giving them maybe a couple of supplements, maybe like magnesium and vitamin D and hydration, and just regulating the blood, like the blood levels, that would stabilize them to have almost no how do you say, like outbursts, right? Of erratic behaviors and things like that. So I see that with my clients. It's like I work a lot with people that have anxiety and depression. So they come to me, and sometimes it's like, okay, so what is your nutrition like? And then they're eating all processed foods.
Yeah, exactly.
And they have no exercise. And then we're forced into the computer all day or not having a job, or sitting and like, having a mask on and all this stuff. So independent of what's going on in the world, if you're just eating terrible food, all processed food, that's pretty much poison. Like you're creating inflammation, you're creating leaky gut, and that's the gut brain connection. It's gonna make you crazy, basically, right? So you're not gonna be able to regulate your emotions because the body and mind is connected, and there's so many receptors and sensitivities in your gut as much as in your brain, so and in your heart. So those things are all connected. So you have to always really mind your nutrition. The physical thing is really primarily when looking at all this stuff, right? So if you want to regulate your emotions, make sure that you're exercising, that you're drinking enough water, and that you're not eating a bunch of sugar. And that's the very beginning, right? Because it feels like anxiety. So
spot on.
So there's clients that sometimes have fear of flying, right? And then you're going to go examine, is that the day that they fly, they eat all wrong. Like you don't sleep well at night because you're kind of packing and timing and this and that, and you don't eat, and then your blood levels all messed up. So turns out they don't have fear of flying. They have anxiety, but their blood levels is all messed up. So hey, let's regulate that, and then guess what? You don't even need anything. Like the hypnosis and all that stuff is just like, hey, you just need help. You just need some insight. That's all. Sometimes that's all it takes.
And that's the whole Hippocrates, let thy food be thy medicine, let thy medicine be thy food. And that's the whole Ayurvedic tradition as well of the entire sort of Indian style of understanding that the actual intake of food is energetic itself. And so we can't go off eating at the most physical portion of the pie that you illustrate. Physical, you gotta not just intake refined sugars and processed meats and foods and undergo stressful habits with parents smoking pack a day, like complete lack of vitamin D, no sunlight, no movement of the body, hunched over a computer 8 straight hours, cortisol levels from deadlines and from angry and not compassionate people around you. Disastrous, absolutely disastrous, and most first principled, like you indicate. It's most first principled is that physical. And you're right that to filter that first is paramount. And I love all of the this really deeply reminds me also of, in that first part of chapter 6 on the AI coach, before that Biometrics of Awakening, we talk about this AI coach and this data visualization of our self, of our unique individuation. And it really resonates with what you were saying a little bit ago, which is something along the lines of this, which is that as your first intention that you must set, which is know thyself, awaken, self-realize the one infinite creator as your first intention. Know your self-realization and self-actualization, the integration and the unique individuation. And as your second thing, which is super interesting that you brought this up, because it's basically what I illustrate here, which is that you want to visualize your data, in this case your psychometrics. That's why Edward Tufte says above all else show the data. And so if you have a clear visual of your psychometrics, like your big 5, your personality traits, OCEAN is the acronym: openness, extroversion, agreeableness, openness, conscientiousness is the C. Then E is extroversion, A is agreeableness, and N is neuroticism. So I missed that C. Yeah. And so that sort of psychometric understanding as a baby step towards know thyself is a really good one. It's a really good one. It's usually the first one that I also recommend people, but you'd be surprised at even how many people won't even take that first step. Actually, the numbers were, if this is right, Claire Graves, Don Beck, Chris Cowan gave, I think, an approximate similar answer that David Hawkins gave, which is approximately 8.5 out of every 10 people, approximately 85% of people are living in some sort of a more egoic level of consciousness, have, in a sense, haven't undergone even a transpersonal state of existence, which is like when you at least begin slowly revealing peeling off the layers to your onion, to your soul, and getting at this most primal level of consciousness. And then that at least opens you up to some of the more deeper levels. But so these little AI coaches are really helpful because they do things like slowly nudge us, if we can visualize our data, towards these more enlightened states, and that these are really important, especially for people in positions of power. So that was something I wanted to bring up. And then another thing that I thought would be interesting is it might be good potentially for you to highlight, because we've had a good chunk of the conversation has been super fascinating, unpacking this at a really embodied level of the development of consciousness and the different strategies to do so. I would like to maybe have you share examples of the actual kind of nitty gritty examples of, maybe with me, if you want to do NLP, if you want to do hypnosis, if you want to do a meditation or mindfulness experience, if you want to show us something in Jiu Jitsu, if you want to do any of those.
All of the above?
All of the above. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Well, just before we go there into a more practical side of things, I would just conclude the parts.
Yes.
Know your parts, right? So there's another set of parts, which is the essence and the ego, I call it. So that's sometimes confusing because people, sometimes if you study psychology, the ego and the id and the Freud work kind of has different definitions. The terminology is a little bit different, but Jung would say maybe the shadow side, like your shadow work, things like that, of that nature. That would be your ego. And your essence is who you truly are. So those two parts are very important to know and to be very familiar with them. So your essence is who you are, who you were, who you're always gonna be, is your higher self, right? Compared to your lower self. Your ego is kind of like an interface that allows you to function in this plane of consciousness, in this reality that we're living in right now. But it's something that you can't let the ego take over, right? You have to identify yourself with your essence and disassociate from your ego, and just kind of keep an eye on your ego, and to always understand the nature of the ego, so that you're not falling into egoic patterns, because they're destructive, right? The ego is destructive. The ego, I read that somewhere, but I posted on my Instagram at Adelita Live.
We'll pull that up.
It's one of there it is.
It's
the
right
ego.
There. It's right there, right in the heart and center.
Exactly.
The ego is not your amigo.
It's not your amigo.
Boom.
Right. So when you understand the ego and the patterns that come in, it can destroy your relationship. It can destroy everything that you try to do. So when you understand that, you can disassociate from it. And then when you see egoic things coming up, you can now have a choice and respond instead of react, right? So not to let your ego take control. And then I have a list of different attributes of the ego. The ego always wants to be right. The ego already knows everything. Like the reality is that we don't know anything, right? Always have a open mind to think that maybe perhaps your point of view could be wrong. Like only the madman is absolutely certain of things, right? Was that Robert Anton Wilson?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that guy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you really try to be right, and then you think that only your religion is right, and then you're intolerant and you're getting offended, everything is offended, and you're taking sides, and it's this or that, you're in egoic patterns, and that is destructive. And at the end of the day, if you just let that run your life, you're gonna end up alone, broke, and sad, and unhealthy. And that's where the ego wants to kill you. So just watch out for that. And then try to find out what your essence is, and work on developing and getting acquainted with that, and fall in love with that. Exactly. That's who you really are.
Exactly.
So
I
know
love
your
that.
parts.
Yeah, ego, essence. I love that. Lower, higher self. Yeah. Well said. And again, that follows that human development that we were talking about. Totally.
Yeah. So
what do we want to do? Examples.
So hypnosis, I would like to talk about hypnosis a little bit.
Okay.
So hypnosis is something that we go in and out of hypnosis every day. Some people are afraid of hypnosis, but they don't know that they're being hypnotized every day on a daily basis, whether you know it or not.
There's lots of propaganda. Yeah.
Propaganda. And also
Totally.
from the time, just how we're born, how we're designed, from the time that we are born, from the time we're 7, we are in a very suggestible state. So the first 7 years of your life, whatever you tell a kid, it's going to imprint directly into their unconscious mind. So there's a conscious mind and unconscious mind. So the conscious mind is only 5 to 8% of the capacity of your whole mind. Okay, mind is different than the brain, right? The mind, it's more subjective. It's maybe an energy field, right? It's not your brain itself. It includes that, your neurology, and much more, right? So the mind the unconscious mind, it's like 95% of your power of your mind. So when you wanna create your reality, you're creating from the unconscious mind. But when you are being programmed as a child, or every time before you go to sleep, 30 minutes before, and as soon as you wake up, that first 30 minutes, as soon as you wake up, whatever happens during those times is who you become unconsciously. That becomes your unconscious patterns. Those are the unconscious patterns of your parents and of your great grandparents and grandparents and everybody. So we are carrying this egoic patterns, unconscious patterns that we swear that we're not going to be like our parents, but yes, we grow up and then we're doing the exact same thing, right? Yeah. So we have to reprogram. We have to remember who we are. Then we have to reprogram our mind, right? Reprogram our mind and recreating our reality. So first of all, we have to remember who we are, our divine essence. Once we know and remember who we are, we know we can recreate our reality. Recreating our reality by reprogramming our unconscious mind. Our unconscious mind is polluted. It's filled with all kinds of wrong information, like virus, let's say. Like, so if you like computer analogies, you know.
Love these, yeah, love these.
So your mind, you have to reprogram. There's viruses, and we're going to have to go and remove those to be able to install new software. Okay, so we're going to install new software, which is the reprogramming and then recreating. Does that make sense?
I love him taking so many notes, yeah.
So in hypnosis, that's what we do. So we live in a state of hypnosis because when you study how to become a hypnotist, what you do it's you create an overload of units, mental units, so that people get overloaded the conscious mind, and it just kind of gives up and overwhelmed, and then you can access a path through the unconscious mind.
Yep.
So if you go to a place where people are talking blah 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 blah, or if you're watching TV, and if you're not connected to your breath, you're being brainwashed, you're being hypnotized. Every time a lot of information, you start to get that glare in your eye, you're gonna get tired, and it's like you're open. You're in hypnotic state. Yeah. So it's not something you have to fear, but it's something that happens, you know, when you're a child, most pronounced, but every single day we get in and out of hypnosis several times. The more stress you have, the more you're living in your sympathetic, you know, fight or flight mechanism, that means you are prone and you're subject to hypnosis. So the events that are happening in the world, economic, all this political, you name it, right? Those are creating overwhelming units of stress and anxiety. So you're highly hypnotizable. So whatever you're consuming is going deep in your programming. So we need to be really careful with that. And then people sometimes are afraid to go to a hypnotist or a hypnotherapist because they don't know what hypnosis is. They feel like, you know, they're scared of what, you know, you never lose consciousness in hypnosis, right? Hypno comes from sleep, but you don't actually fall asleep. Okay, so you just kind of get into a relaxed, focused state in which you can access the unconscious mind and go in there and reprogram. So I would talk to you like if you're my client, I would say, what is a goal that you have? What is something that you want to, what it is that you want instead of what you don't want, right? Because people come saying, I don't want this, I don't like this, my marriage, my job, my this and that. It's like, what do you want? Because the universe only in the unconscious mind is going to understand what you want. So tell me, what is something that you would like to get out of this mini session today?
Wow. Another just interesting thing that came while you were sharing was that, before I just give my answer, that
sure,
the stressed state that's more hypnotizable, that one is the exact kind of lower levels that we've been talking about. And then the higher levels that we've been talking about are very much relaxed. And like in many of the perennial mystic traditions, what is said are things like in Dzogchen, we talk about the lion's gaze. And that's like the relaxed lion on the savannah that is literally melted into the oneness, that oceanicness. And like that holding that frequency of being is a completely different, it's like you're a complete sovereign, conscious of the breath life force, conscious of everything that is happening around you in a very deeply relaxed level, versus when you're like super stressed, super fight or flight, super sympathetic. We're really much more programmable. We're much more in those states. You can tell how programmable you are because of how easily you're triggered, because like when something happens and you get triggered right away by it, versus when you're in that relaxed state, you are the observer. First and foremost, you are that infinite observation. And so when it happens, you're just in a state of relaxation. And then you, what unfolds through the vessel unfolds intuitively. And so
Wow.
I had to hit that ball back because you hit it so well over. I had to hit it.
Oh, that's amazing. That's the flow state, right? That's
Yes,
that's what
yes.
you're trying to
Yes.
channel, like in your fights, in your life, in your everything that you do is to be able to live in cause and not at effect. Right? I love that.
I love that. Oof.
That's what we want to cultivate, is to live in a state of dissociation. We want to dissociate from the world, from the chaos, right? And be this observer. So that's such an interesting practice that you can start to develop through your breath, right? And just observe the world. You don't have to have an opinion about everything.
Exactly.
You don't have to get offended. You don't have to get immersed into the fight in a way. How about you can, maybe laugh at it because it's humorous if it wasn't so
Yep.
tragic.
Yep. What would it require for the 85% of people we've been talking about to have a moment of laughter about the state of our creation? A moment of even hypothesize for one moment, could everything in creation be absolutely perfect?
Well, what happens is it's like in their face like this, so there's no space.
There's no space, there's no pause. Yeah,
right. It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
so it's too
That's
much.
what it was like.
So you have
and
to,
for me too, I just want to say, because I was in the same position that you've been describing through the show. Many of the people that come on the show are in the same position that we were in years ago, where it was just like that. And now we've gotten here, and now we try and share this with others, and I love that aspect to this. Okay, so the intention that I'm setting for, we have a hypnosis session that's occurring. So
like a mini run, right?
a mini run, yeah, a mini hypnosis session.
Demo.
So an intention. Now, can I make the intention self-realization?
Whatever you want.
I would love for that to be the intention. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna play a little bit of called clean language. Have you heard of that?
Clean language?
Yeah.
Whoa. Is this NLP stuff too?
It's its own technique.
Its own technique?
Yeah.
Okay.
Forgot Judy something. It's a
clean
lady.
language.
Clean
Okay.
language.
Okay, let's
clean
do it.
language. So it's like a game. Okay, it's like
Okay.
I'm looking for metaphors.
For metaphors. okay.
Metaphors. So so if you were to be self-realized,
Yes.
I'm looking for keywords.
Ocean.
Okay, and to be in self-realized in emotion, what would that be like?
Melting.
Oh man, you've done this before.
I'm just giving you what comes out.
Oh my god, you're like so on top of it. You just so got it. So ocean and immersion. What else?
Melting.
Melting.
Yeah.
Melting into the ocean, right? That would be feel like self-realization. And then when you melting in the ocean, self-realized in that immensity, right? What would that be like?
Bliss, peace.
Bliss and peace.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're chunking up. In NLP, we're just going higher and higher, right? In definition, into the broadness of it all. So then, if you're immersed in this vastness of the ocean and you're melting into this vastness and in self-realization and in bliss, right?
Yes.
In bliss, what would that be like?
Ecstasy.
Feel like ecstasy. Okay, so got some keywords to work with. So we can come back. That was not the hypnotic part. That was just a conversational, cognitive almost part of it. It's like a more advanced cognitive, but you can almost start and go there, right? It's a pre-hypnotic. Like you can kind of, if you people that meditate can go there. Like you're already going. Come back.
Yeah.
Come back.
That's
Stay
what
here with me.
if you noticed what Adelita was doing throughout that was she was very intelligently, very spiritually acting as a very well-versed catalyst for my process in this case. So her essence was uplifting the intention. It was mirroring the intention. It was repeating the words that I was choosing with my intentions to elevate.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the unconscious mind works with metaphors. That's the language of the mind. If you just tell stories, you're hypnotizing somebody. That's what Milton Erickson did.
Yeah.
That's the Ericksonian hypnosis technique. He didn't do anything. People walked up to him. He came. He talked, told jokes, told stories. They left. They didn't have a problem. He didn't do anything. Oh, but I'm cured. Oh, interesting. No, so language. It's really important. The words that we are being said, and the stories that we hear, the things we subscribe to, the movies that we watch, we're being led one way or the other. Always.
Yes. Logos.
So the Robert Anton Wilson also said that hypnosis is something that all politicians, world leaders, they all know about the nature of hypnosis. They know and they use it, and the process is like for us to be dehypnotized. So I dehypnotize people very often. Right, we're all walking in a trance of disempowerment. So we have to remember.
The same way there's like a mantra in transcendental meditation is the same way there's a mantra coming from politicians. It's super interesting. You can see it, the mantra. You can see the mantra coming from the most self-dealing corporations that are trying to just put high fructose corn syrup into your veins. They have their mantras that they pitch hypnotically. Okay, so that was the first part.
So that
which
was
is
just
called
initial. That's kind of like a part of a little bit of a cognitive, like what your goals are, and then we're expanding upon your goals. Okay.
Excellent.
So now we're gonna do a little bit of an induction and a little bit of some funny games. So I want you to bring your arms out like this.
Okay.
Your hands, like in front of you.
Yes. Okay.
Like this. Maybe elevate it a little bit, like at eye level, like this. Right, and interlace your fingers. Okay. And then I want you to squeeze everything really tight, like your fingers and your wrist, and then even bring your forearms together, right? And then it's like it's a strong situation. And in a moment, not just yet, keep pressing it really hard. We're gonna open up our index fingers like this, not just yet. Look at me. Open up your index finger like this, not just yet. But squeeze everything tight, and when you do, I want you to look right in between them and notice an electromagnetic force. Go ahead and open, look in between your fingers. Note an electromagnetic force pulling them together. Look in the middle of your fingers, put all your attention, your focus, and notice how they want to come together, closer and closer with each and every breath, and touch. Touch. Now go ahead and close your eyes and let go of your arms. Take a deep breath. So that was the working of your unconscious mind, right? And then now for another exercise. Coming back, open your eyes. Look at me. Only focus on the sound of my voice. Open your eyes. Bring your hand right in front of you like this. So I want you to focus on the very top of your middle finger with all your intention and all your attention, which every ounce of your energy elevated a little bit higher and a little bit closer to your face. And breathe. And notice how your hand tends to come in magnetically attracted closer and closer, just like the fingers, with each and every breath, closer and closer. Closer and closer. The more you breathe, the more you allow, the closer it becomes, all by itself. Allowing, permitting, allowing your unconscious mind, the intelligence of your own mind, to move your hand all the way and touch your face at any point, reaching skin contact and deep sleep. Deep sleep. Each and every time I suggest the word deep sleep to you, Atlas, for the purpose of hypnosis, with my permission, with your permission rather, you will reach this depth of hypnosis or even deeper, and the physical body will completely relax. Each and every time I suggest the word deep sleep, the physical body will completely relax. So you can access the non-conscious part of your mind, the part of your mind that's most powerful, and the part of your mind in which all your goals and your dreams reside, your power, your intention. So with each and every breath, we're going to go deeper. And I want you to imagine you're the very top of a staircase. With each and every breath, on the very top of a staircase that is 10 steps long, 10 steps long, of your own design. It is beautiful. It's powerfully built. Handrails. When we get into the hypnotic states, our mouth tends to be dry, and then you start to notice a little dryness around. Your eyes also flutter, right? So if you notice those tendencies, go ahead and nod your head yes. And going down this magnificent celestial staircase, we're going to start with your right foot first. We're going to go down 10 steps deep with your right first going down now. 10. Left 9. Going down. 8. 7. 6. 5. 4. 3. 2. 1. Deep sleep. Deep sleep. Going even deeper. Each and every time I suggest the word deep sleep to you, the purpose of hypnosis, physical body will completely relax. Completely relax. Now imagine a waterfall of light and divinity and beauty and bliss, like an ocean, like a waterfall, like vast and immense, just washing, pouring down over you at the very bottom of your own staircase. And this immensity, right there it is. The immensity of the beauty, of the bliss, of melting, of the magnificence of it all. Allowing yourself to go deeper and experience through your eyes, see through your own ear, hear through your own ears, see through your eyes. Make it big, make it bright. Really feel it in your heart and allow that to expand a sense of joy and gratitude and oneness and bliss, like the ocean, like melting, like enlightenment. And remembering who you are, remembering where you came from. Remember, you can always access these states. Remember, it's always there for you. This emotional state, this place in your unconscious mind. It's always there, and it's growing. It's growing as you allow it to feel it even deeper and allow to merge with the oneness, with yourself, and the beauty of the vastness of the ocean, the universe. Just rewiring your brain, your neurology, your physicality, your emotions with this knowing, with this level of understanding, of unconditional love. Right? Breathe that in and let that grow and expand. And allowing these changings, this knowing to continue throughout the next few days and weeks ahead, integrating deeply into your neurology, rewiring yourself, creating more space for more opportunities, for more beauty, for more joy, prosperity, and abundance in your life. With a deep sense of gratitude, we're going to come up and out of the state of hypnosis. I'm going to count from 1 through 5, sealing the door of the subconscious from any negative influence and keeping all the positive knowing and lessons that we've learned. Allow that to permeate your life from now into the future. With the 1 coming up and out, 2, more alert, 3, more awake, 4, with the deep sense of joy and gratitude, and with 5 is eyes open, wide awake. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, eyes open, wide awake, wide awake. Welcome back. How many minutes do you think that was? Because time is relative, right? That's when you know that time can be compressed or stretched in hypnosis. If I were to tell you that was an hour, that would be a long show, right?
7 minutes.
7 minutes?
Something like
That's
that.
pretty accurate.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think, it wasn't super long, but...
And it felt so good visualizing the rebaselining, like what we're talking about throughout the show. Because when we talk about your ability to visually guide the intention of the agent that is setting the intention, and to walk them through that process of making some sort of like a physical, like engaging process for them to hone in on, and then for it to have that sort of more suggestive faculties open up, and for them to have their gatekeeper move to the side.
Yes.
And then for you to access, and for that intention to really be beautifully set and actualized through your storytelling abilities is really great, because that visualization of the love and the light, the visualization of the waterfall, of the serenity, the visualization of that beautiful infinite scene put me into the position of being in that childlike infinite awareness, and just being there for that, extended period of time, being there, being present with it, visualizing the process of, as we're closing out the scene, that we're shutting that door to all of the negative forces that could potentially come in and try and flood and pervert that scenario. And so there's a lot of sort of, it's important to, it was very beautiful, your skillfulness in that process, and also the importance of people to become more willing to undergo hypnotic processes that serve their intention, rather than to have the hypnosis propagandize from the exterior in self-dealing habits towards those egoic interests, to just drain the energy from individuals. So it was really good. It's really solid. Rocking.
Nice.
How did it resonate with you? How did you feel about it?
I felt like your feet were moving right?
my
So
gosh,
that's when you realize
Stairs
the
was so
stairs,
funny.
right?
I got so excited about the stairs.
Yeah. And you were so deep in hypnosis that you didn't even do what we call progressive relaxation, in which we kind of go in and we kind of relax the, you know, the feet and the toes and the muscles and the leg and then this and then that. We didn't even go through that. I have a journey sometimes it's a ball of light, that healing ball of light that scans your whole body, emotionally, spiritually. There's a whole different thing that was not even needed because you're already there. So usually we do like some inductions, we do some tests, some arm raising, and then we do what we call progressive relaxation, relax all the muscles, and then get into a space of like going deeper, do a staircase, and then after the staircase we start to add in. Did you see how I add in those keywords, right? The keywords before you knew, they're all there, right? The bliss, the melting. So it's not what I want for you.
Totally.
It's the words that
you're mirroring,
right? That you have already, the metaphors that work for you, not what I want. So get my ego out of the way and let you just facilitate a space for you to. There's no such thing as hypnosis. We say all hypnosis is self-hypnosis.
Yeah, self-hypnosis. Yeah.
So,
and that's why when Joe Dispenza says you are the placebo, right? You pretty much just need that letting yourself do the process. Get out of your own fucking way.
Yes.
In so many ways.
The conscious mind, the inner chatter, right? So if you can calm that down, right? The more you practice, you can calm that down. And that's what I do before jiu-jitsu matches. I hypnotize myself.
There you go. Exactly.
Okay.
Likewise, before my TEDx talk, before the show, I do that with every guest before the show. We just go into a very inward process. And during that process, I'm just manifesting the absolute highest for the conversation. That's my intention in that process. And so that can be thought of as intention, as self-reflection, as container, as hypnosis, self-hypnosis, container hypnosis, container intention. It's like, let it, manifest it.
Know what you want.
Let it happen. Know what you want. Yeah.
Yeah. And hold that thought, right? Don't let your thought wander. Like, know what you want.
Exactly.
Believe that you can have it, and then take action.
Adelita is on absolute fire. I love it. This has been such a good conversation. I want to ask two last thoughts. The first one is a question about what you feel the Godhead of our reality is. So, what do you think is the attractor that our complex system of a civilization is evolving towards? What is our telos? What is that purpose? What is that attractor? What's the end state? And does that continue a cyclic process of exploring more? How do you see that happening? What do you see there?
Well, there's like different things happening at different levels. So there's the individual level, and then there's the collective conscious, unconscious most of the time. Making the unconscious conscious, right? So I think that's part of the process for us. And once we become conscious, we become self-aware, right? We become more intentional. We create our reality. We transcend all that. We transcend the need, the want, the pain, the suffering, right? And we achieve a state of like instant manifestation of no pain, of like just absolute power of being in oneness, right? In oneness with the universe and with the natural laws and with God. You align with the will of God and the creator, the universe. So you're living that reality of being in service of the ultimate life force generator. And with a deep sense of empathy and compassion and understanding. Once you realize that all you want to do is help and to serve, and you become one, because ultimately that's who we are. We are a spark of divinity. So we just realize that, like, deeply, like we live that, right, reality. So right now we can just only imagine. So there are different processes you can do to go there and back. But then we're faced with the traffic and the freeways and taxes and the media. Right?
Let me be even more specific, because your answer is very aligned with my answer in many ways. But I think that what we both align on there is a step beyond where we're at now. But I want to see what you think and feel is beyond that step. So in my understanding, this would be a hypothesis, and it'd be interesting to hear what you think about this. There's this word, it's called the metaverse. And it basically means it's a synthesis of artificial general intelligence, bio and neurotechnology, and indistinguishable virtual realities. Okay? And you put all those things together into one thing, you call it the metaverse. Let's say in the next couple of decades, maybe in 50 or 100 years, we're building these indistinguishable virtual realities, and we're using technologies like Neuralink and artificial general intelligence and extremely high power capacities in order to immerse ourselves in these indistinguishable virtual worlds and just browse states of qualia, of phenomenology, of consciousness, and just go between worlds just like we do with our video game console today. We jump between different games that we play. We save files, we exit games, we jump back in, we level up characters. So my question to you would be, if that's where we're heading, if that sounds like something that it makes sense that that's where we're heading, is that also not what this already is?
Right.
Right, okay. And is that then the cyclic cosmology? Is that then the cyclic exploration that we're undergoing of all of the different states of experience that are possible? We're eternally going to explore all of the different reality designs and all of the different states of consciousness, of awareness, of sentience that exist, where we continuously realize, as I said with Wahat al-Wujud, the unity of all unveiling and finding. So across all of these different realities, there is sentience that is unveiling and finding out that it is that one infinite creator.
Wow. I think in some level, that's already what's happening. I'm not sure about the artificial intelligence and all that, because I understand that planet Earth is not all there is. There are many other civilizations and other beings out there that would be too much empty space, I think, for the creator. He likes a really big empty space. Imagine if you had, just put one little dot in a huge white sheet of paper that is like the size of like a building. It's just a tiny little dot, and that's not even like, a good representation, because it's infinitely much bigger than that. So there's other many counts of other beings out there, interactions, and they are living way more advanced than us. So if we are toying with artificial intelligence, I think that they are have gone there and beyond. And so if it depends on the level of consciousness and morality in spiritual development of the civilization. Some civilizations could, like ours, not very morally evolved, but very technologically advanced, by now. Then what happens is it's dangerous, right? It's scary, it's dangerous. Like, don't do it, because you're sub 200. Don't mess with that stuff. Like, you belong in a in a place where you're doing personal development and like self work and not necessarily redesigning human consciousness when you haven't even achieved a higher level. So in other places of the planet in which maybe they're more morally advanced, I think, it's a good thing. But for us, I think it's just dangerous because we're not there yet. So the point of it all,
and we may get there. And then we may do the exact process that we talk about. And then that may be exactly where we came from. And it's really exciting.
Exactly.
It's really exciting.
But we're always learning and picking something up, right? I think we're always in the process of learning.
Yes. The character, the video game character, continues across lifetimes here, across different soul vehicles in different realities. And it becomes potentially more and more exciting and difficult, and taking on, like Joseph in the Coat of Many Colors, taking on many different embodiments of the one infinite creator realizing itself. And that's so profound. That's like the coolest game that exists. I don't know if I can even think of a cooler game that could exist than literally one infinite creator unveiling and finding itself across different vehicles of sentience in different realities. Like, what? This is the best game in town. That's so dope.
Yeah, it's a lot about evolving and the evolution and learning and growth and the expansion of your awareness.
Yep.
And unconditional love, I think eternally.
That's
right?
it.
I think that continue
Spot
to
on.
expand.
Spot on. Yep. I love it. Last funny question, silly question we have on the show. What is your favorite food?
My favorite food. I've been eating a lot of protein powder lately. I think that's my favorite food. I've been eating. I try to eat about 100 something grams of protein a day. So I drink protein powder with water, 3-4 times a day, and I really look forward to doing that. I really enjoy it.
Of course, that's your answer. When you choose your protein powder that you think is most optimal, what do you choose?
Well, I choose Biooptimizers because...
Oh, shout out Biooptimizers, Anthony Flores. What's Wade's last name? Wade?
Lightheart.
Wade Lightheart.
And
Anthony Flores.
Matt Gallant.
And Matt Gallant.
Panama City. Yeah, they're meeting right now as we speak, but they are...
Biooptimizers, they have protein.
They're really famous for enzymes, and they just came out with a line of nootropics that is customizable. So it's custom-made nootropics.
Yep.
Subscription that they have going is insane. So you can be hyper focused, and that's what people really at high levels are doing to achieve
hyper focused nootropics for that.
Yeah.
So literally I'm combining maybe a couple milligrams of caffeine with a couple milligrams of maybe CBD, right? Stuff like this.
Yeah, no caffeine is higher levels if you have a pretty high level.
Not even caffeine.
Genius chemist that it's really customizable. So it's whatever who you are. So they run tests and things like that. So that's
awesome.
exciting. So they're doing that. They just came out and just coming out with the protein powder. They're gonna have I think chocolate coming out and then berry. So
are you currently using their existing protein powder as well?
Well, it hasn't come out yet to the public.
New one. Oh, okay.
So this is the pre-launch just for the.
We'll keep it on the DL.
Yeah, it's coming out.
When Biooptimizers, we'll get Wade, and we'll get Wade on the show. Anthony's been on the show. Matt, maybe we'll get also on the program, and we'll shout out more about. We'll maybe undergo the process of unpacking the nootropics and unpacking the protein powder, and we'll share that with our audience. Could be fun. Could be some good stuff.
That'll be amazing.
Of course, you're doing 100 grams of protein a day. Look at your muscle. She's got more muscle than I do. You've got way more muscle than I do. It's crazy. Flex. Will you flex for us?
I'm not very strong right now.
Look at that. That's a rock. That's a rock, though. That's a rock.
I'm not even
Look at her
lifting right
deltoids. Look at her deltoids. They're way more look at how carved they are. It's crazy. It's nuts. She's like, I'm not even lifting. I'm just, Okay.
So should we show one jiu-jitsu technique first to finalize? I already have time for that?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Okay.
So I'm going to describe first because we have to stand up.
Okay,
So
sounds
what
good.
I like to do is like in jiu-jitsu, we start standing, but most jiu-jitsu schools, they start sparring on their knees because injuries and this and that. So it's really weird. And there's this whole thing of pulling guard, which is not cool, which is just kind of like sitting on your butt pretty much instead of like taking down and engaging like in judo or wrestling or a leg takedown or a throw or something like that. So I come from like a line like of wrestling and wrestlers. I became a wrestler here, like in the U.S. So I don't like pulling guard. So I encourage people because when you compete, you start standing. You don't start on your knees.
Okay.
And pulling guard is just grabbing somebody's hand and sitting on your butt and then just fighting from there.
Oh, I see.
And I think a more like interesting, more aggressive, more,
it is. When you're
Spartan thing to do.
You're just reaching at their face and at their body from standing up. Yeah. And maybe tackling, but pulling guard is when you pull them down and kind of go from the mat.
You just kind of sit on your butt. You just have to touch them. You can just sit on your butt. Let's say the ref says fight.
Yeah.
And then you just kind of grab their sleeve and sit on your butt. So that's pulling guard.
Oh.
And then they have to engage that.
Oh.
And that in UFC, they don't even allow that. They make you stand up because nobody likes to watch that. So I think a more visually interesting, engaging thing, maybe a more Spartan thing to do would be to, do a takedown, or that's my bias, Some people are like amazing at pulling guard. So
so just one thing to keep in mind is that we need the mic. So how do we want to? So how do we want to?
So what I'm gonna explain is it's a throw. It's kind of like a throw, but you're not actually hip throw. You don't have to hip throw, which is kind of cool. We get an underhook on each arm. We're gonna get an underhook, and then we're gonna go around the head. So it's a head and arm sort of throw, but it's kind of like one that you just twist and sit on your butt. So right away, you get 2 points for the takedown in a tournament. And then from there is a pretty sweet head and arm triangle that's already locked in for you to go. So it could be a quick like throw and submission. And there's also, I've done like a wrist lock from there because, they're already locked. So I'm just going to show right now. So we're going to get an underhook and then in each arm on whichever arm you prefer. And then you lock a grip like this around the neck. And then you just kind of twist. You just starting to turn. And then eventually you sit on your butt and then they will fall with you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
it's just,
correct. Yeah. Yep.
It's just how it goes. If you had a head and an arm, you have them. So that's why in wrestling, we work the underhooks.
Yes.
And constantly swimming under and doing this game because you don't want people getting underhook. If they get an underhook and then they
cooked. Come up, and they pull me down, I'm done.
You can't really defend it. It's past your defense.
You can't get from this
and
position.
if you get an underhook, also opens up the side of that body that you can attack that
and
leg.
Then this becomes vulnerable. Yeah.
So underhooks are golden. Right?
Yeah.
So we're going to get an underhook. We're going to go gable grip around the neck and we're going to twist and then we're going to sit. So I'm just kind of, I don't know, I can't really fall here, but I can show the lock, the grip.
Okay. Or we could move both chairs out of the way.
Oh my God.
And then we could just show the visual.
Okay.
Because the audio will be too far away from the mics.
Right. So that's why I already explained everything we're going to do.
Okay.
Underhook, lock the gable grip around the neck, and then you just twist, and a person was going to fall. Eventually, it's just what happens.
Okay.
You could add your hip if you feel, after you got this down, you could hip into them.
Don't throw me down too
But
hard.
not today.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Should we move the chairs and do it? Okay. Let's do it. Okay. All right. Here we go. Okay, I zoomed out the camera for us. Okay.
This is fun.
All right, let's see. This is what our shot looks like now.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. My head's cut off a little bit.
It is cut off a little bit. I can angle I can angle the camera up a little. That'll probably help. Okay, like this, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
All right. So So
Oh,
like
gosh.
in a match, we
Oh,
would
gosh,
we,
okay.
we shake hands
Yeah.
and then we go, right? So
Oh,
what
wow.
I like to do right off the bat
Go slowly.
is like I like to just do a little bit of a setup, which is like I would shake you down like this. While you're thinking about that, it's a
Okay.
distraction, right?
Okay.
Like think about that,
Yeah.
and then I'm going here,
And that's the underhook.
right? So that's how I get the underhook set up. So let's
So
do
I'm
this and see.
Okay.
So we're gonna do a little jerky now here, and then we get the underhook. Once we have this,
Yep.
you just go around here.
Oh shit.
And then now I'm just kind of like turning, and it's going down eventually, right?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna sit here,
Yep.
and then pretty much I have already locked on a head and an arm.
And then
with your arm triangle.
am I trying to go like this, right?
Well, in Jiu Jitsu you don't punch,
Oh yeah.
but even if you
In
did,
UFC.
it's too close. It would not really hurt because it's close, right? I want to be close. If I'm far like this, then your
Yeah.
punch is gonna hurt. If I'm
Yeah,
close like
it's
this,
not gonna hurt that
can they
bad.
see?
Or maybe they use their knee.
They can't really see
They
you
can't
down
really
the bottom.
see? Oh.
Yeah.
Well, maybe.
But yeah, so that's what we have.
So
It's like
yeah.
this is the setup.
Yeah.
Think about that. Usually you come up. So the reaction is like if I do this, you react out fast, right? Right?
Yeah.
And then I come this, I get this, and then I get the head.
Oh.
And then I lock the cable
yeah,
over here.
even just that.
And then I'm just gonna twist and turn and sit on my butt.
Yeah.
And it's gonna go down. But if I really wanted to, I could just add my hip here and pick
Oh! Oh! Oh!
and throw back.
I almost got thrown. I almost got flipped there. Wow.
Oh, they couldn't hear any of that.
Well, they could hear. They could
Little
hear
bit.
it a little bit. Yeah. Wow. Holy shit. Oh my gosh. I love the strategy there. It's kind of like pulling a little bit. Yeah, like that. That's good. And go this way a little bit. Like, okay, go ahead and sit. That's good. Boom. Boom. Jeez. I like, it kind of is fun, like the shot's nice and like big now. It's kind of cool. Wide shot now.
Yeah.
Well, we'll wrap like this with the shot wide. It looks kind of cool. It's super interesting because it's like with anything, whether you go and shoot a basketball 10,000 times or whether you write 40 books throughout your career, whatever you do, in this case, it's like in jiu-jitsu, you're doing this underhook and you're practicing that underhook thousands of times and you're becoming really good and really fast at it and then submitting the opponents. And it's an important thing to know is this close quarters combat. It's an important, exhilarating, it's a, in a way that you're not targeting the hurt of others, you're targeting mastery. And like you were describing also, there's this sort of process where the opponent, in a sense, is mirroring your vulnerabilities and they're helping you become better like that. I think that's super cool way to putting it. So, yeah, those were, I already feel, a little bit of that, for on that side of the neck especially, and it's just like, and you're like, wow, this is just a game right now, but this shit really hurts, even just like as a play.
And that's not supposed to hurt because that's just a throwing thing, right? It's not like there's submissions that are meant to hurt, right?
Yeah.
If I were to land on that with your head and arm locked like that, I would do like a movement like this, and then that would be a head and arm choke, and then that will choke you out. That will, like, eventually it cuts off circulation to the brain, so that's more like a meant to hurt kind of thing, or joint manipulations, right? Arm bars and things
exactly,
like that.
Yeah.
Those are meant to hurt. This wasn't meant to hurt. There was nothing.
Exactly. There's nothing. Exactly. I love it. Okay. Wow. Okay. That's a wrap. And we have like we did our nice great demo at the end as well. I love that. I'm glad we did that. We got our hypnosis demo. We got to unpack the warrior champion mindset. I loved it. It was great. The human development, that was awesome. Just the stages of consciousness development were great. Adelita Montero, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much. This has been amazing.
It's been so fun. This was super ridiculously fun. I've loved every moment of it. It's been so nice. It's been super enriching. I hope for everyone as well that you guys have had a good time. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below on the episode. We'd love to hear from you. Like the video, subscribe if you haven't already. Go and check out Adelita's channel. She has a bunch of content on her channel as well about the things that she was teaching about on the program. There are also some other links in the bio below. We have the Instagram profile for Adelita. Go and check that out as well. Go and follow her. Her content is really inspiring. I share a lot of it myself. And then the AdelitaMonteroLive.com link to her website where she has a bunch of this also unpacked in more detail on there. And practice that warrior champion mindset, everyone. Practice it. As you manifest your dreams into the world, practice that. And support the other artists, entrepreneurs, spiritual leaders, scientists, engineers around the world that you believe in. Support them and help them flourish. You can support Simulation. Our links are in the bio below to support us. Help us flourish. I love that. What a great show. Warrior Champion Mindset. That's it.
Simulation.
Love it.
707. That's a magic number.
It's a very magic number. It's a super magic number.
Thank you.
Super powerful episode. Thanks, everyone. Much love. Thanks for tuning in. See you soon.
Ciao.
Ciao. Peace.